Hi there, Sugar Snaps. Welcome back to my studio. If you're new here, welcome in. Glad to have you. This is the third part in a 3-part series on using an Ashford Jumbo Flyer on my Ashford traditional wheel. The first video, I went over how I set up the Jumbo Flyer. In the second video, I went over immersion dyeing Cheviot wool fiber in order to create an art yarn, and this video is spinning the art yarn itself. I had a lot of fun with this project. I hope you enjoy watching the project unfold. There are links to the first 2 videos in the description below, and you'll see them pop up here in the little eye in the top of the video throughout this segment. So thanks for being here and enjoy the show. So what I'm going to do is use the dark fiber to spin a core yarn, which will be a yarn that's a single, spun pretty evenly. I'm going to do that on my Ashford Kiwi, and then I'm going to use this more variegated lighter color to create a core spun yarn. So this will then get spun over the single that I spin from this darker stuff and create kind of a fun art yarn. So I'm going to start by spinning up a single from this guy, and then once that's done, I'll come back and show you the process of the art yarn. So I'm going to go ahead and spin a thicker yarn than I normally spin. With this fiber, it's a lot coarser than a merino, which means that I can grasp more fibers and end up making a thicker yarn easier than in a merino, because in merino it kind of is silky and just slides out of your fingers. This is a little bit thicker, and so you can see as I'm pulling it out, more fiber is kind of coming out at a time, so I'm able to get this thicker yarn, something that I'm not usually a natural at. Usually I have to work quite a bit to get a thick yarn. Okay, I'm gonna set up my Lazy Kate with this bobbin. You can see those beautiful colors. So I have this set up on my Lazy Kate. I like to work with the Lazy Kate on my right side because it's easier to spin that direction. Core spinning is a process where you take a strand of either a single hand spun or a thread or wire even, something that you can spin onto, and you take that, attach it to your leader yarn, and then you use your art fiber, your fiber that you want to show up the most, to build a fun art yarn. And I've never done this before, so we'll see how this works out. I need to get this guy all set up. The reason I'm using the Jumbo Flyer for this is, one, there's more space on the bobbin, which for this specific project isn't necessary because I only have a little bit of my single spun up. But it means that there's more room on the Jumbo bobbin if I did want to create a lot of yarn, because art yarn takes up more space. So I have this guy looped through here so that I can start spinning this, and I don't know whether to go counterclockwise or clockwise. I think I'm gonna start clockwise. So I spun the single clockwise. I think it'll be okay with a little bit more twist, because then it'll grasp the fibers I'm going to spin onto it. I'm going to take some of this fiber that I dyed, break off a piece, and kind of open it up a bit. And break off a piece to work with. I don't know if core spinning is technically supposed to be done with bats of fiber, but it is in the book that I was reading. I'm using a roving, but you grasp the fiber with like this and kind of at a 90-degree angle and catch it. Ooh, that's cool. And that gets pulled onto your bobbin potentially. Maybe. We'll see. It's box. That might have been too thick. So I pulled off bits, and I'm going to see. Okay.
the little bits, twist them up. And then it looks like I can do the core yarn on top like that to create a decorative core yarn and overspun or fiber yarn. This is really fun. So I have some cool looking core spun with the core showing up on some of the surface of the fiber, and then the fiber covering up the core in some places. You can see what's on my bobbin is looking pretty cool. I'm pretty happy with it. Okay, I am going to adjust to a different ratio though, to the larger ratio, because I'm getting too much twist. And according to what I learned on ratios, if we adjust this guy, sugar snap. Okay, I'm gonna have to go around this side. Take this whole thing off. Okay, on the larger ratio. Now, I need to set myself up with some more pieces like this. And now my dry band is too loose. Always gotta be something, right?
I tightened up my drive band and then got back to spinning.
Okay, so what is working for me is I have my ratio set to the lowest so that the flyer to drive wheel there's not a large dichotomy. Then I have my tension set at a high enough tension that it is naturally wanting to draw the fiber or the yarn onto the wheel. And I'm pedaling at a steady but slow rate. And then I'm using kind of a tight pull with my right hand while I apply the fiber with my left hand, just because it seems to be oddly what feels most comfortable. And I'm kind of going into 90 degrees, sometimes allowing large bumps like these guys, sometimes allowing the core fiber, the core yarn, to come out and show up on the surface, sometimes trying to hide it all together. And every couple minutes I reset with a new batch of strips of fiber. I'm using roving, so I'm taking bits of the fiber and breaking it off into small strips to work with. I think if you use bats, you can do little tufts and work with little tufts off your bat of fiber, and that would apply more randomly. This is kind of applying in a corkscrew around the fiber, or around the core. So I can manipulate this fiber and get it to do lots of fun things, lots of textures, really wrap in one spot to make a big bobble like this, or spread it out to just coat thinly. Like this, I get the fiber attached and then I can basically draft it off to thin it out a bit. Or I can twist on the core fiber so that it shows up a lot. Man, I look like I have a lot of yarn on there, but I've barely really touched what I've spun on this bobbin. The jumbo bobbin setup is really nice. I can get these big tufts through where I couldn't get them through with my normal, don't know where I went, but my normal size orifice. Oh, here's the filler. Yeah, that would barely have gone through there. Okay, I'm gonna keep spinning and playing around with this yarn. I will see you in a bit for a reveal of the finished yarn. Okay, finished the sample, a little bit that I had spun, and now I'm going to put it on a nitty knotty. So there's several different ways of finishing yarn. You can put it in a bath of water. You can full it, which is basically doing a light amount of felting, going from hot to cold water. And you can steam it, which kind of changes, well, it is the most likely to change the texture of the yarn. For art yarn though, I don't want to put this in water because I don't want it to squash or kind of wet down these chunky bits where it's fluffy and airy. Oh my gosh, I'm really enjoying looking at this. Okay, at a certain point I switched from going clockwise to counterclockwise because I spun my single clockwise, and that's what I normally do for my singles. And then I started spinning everything else clockwise as well because I wanted to incorporate that twist or continue that twist. But partially way through right here, you can see, I decided to switch because I was afraid that maybe going in the same direction was adding too much twist and not giving me the opposite twist that you need to hold the yarn together nicely. This seems to be nicely structured, except that there's a lot of twist in it. So I will steam it so that it stays straight, so that it's not all kinked up like this. In future, I know that I will, or I've learned that I will do my singles clockwise, and then anything I add, any core spinning I do will be done counterclockwise in order to reverse that twist, to eliminate over twisting, and so that I get those contradicting twist directions, which work so well together. Okay, I'm gonna finish winding this up on the nitty knotty, get out my steamer and do some steaming on it.
I used my garment steamer to steam the yarn in order to work out all of the kinks from the over twisting.
Reveal time! So I have my finished yarn. It turned out beautiful. With the steaming, it hangs nice and straight. There's not a ton of kinking. There's a little bit of over twisting, but most of it was steamed out. And the texture is really cool. It's kind of fluffy, which is one of the reasons I decided not to put it in a water bath, because I want the airiness of these slubs to be maintained. I don't want them to squash down or felt. It turned out really cool. Lots of different textures in here. I intended to come up with a project to use this for, but as I went along with this video, I ended up pretty much doing 3 different projects throughout this whole project, with the processing the flyer, doing the staining of the flyer, and then the dyeing of this fiber, these fibers that I dyed, and then the actual spinning of this guy. So I decided to put the project out of this as a new video. Maybe down the road I'll film another video about that. So I learned a lot in this process, learned how to work with ratios, how to do some different art yarn techniques. I definitely suggest the spinning and dyeing book. I'll put it in the description below. Check her book out for lots of spinning technique instructions and dyeing instructions. Then something else was just fiddling with the different things that you can adjust on your wheel. I did a lot of playing around with the ratios to get the right amount of speed or twist in my fiber, with also playing with the tension. Of course, treadling speed and drafting speed and all that. Whew, I feel like this project was a bit of a marathon. Took me a lot longer than I was expecting because, as usual, I added to the project as I went. Thanks so much for sticking with me and getting to the end. I hope you're inspired to try your own art yarn or experiment with immersion dyeing fiber. Well, y'all, it's been a wild ride. Thanks so much for watching. Subscribe and hit the bell if you want to get notified whenever I put out a new video. Like this video if you want to see more vlog style videos. And subscribe to my email list. The link's in the description below because I'd love to be able to be in contact with you, send you a twice a month email with lots of resources, tutorials, news from the YouTube channel and my website. Thanks for joining me in the studio. It's been a blast. I will catch you next time. Bye. I could turn this into dreadlocks and wear it in my hair as clips. Let's see. What do you think?